This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This has been a tricky journey for Wolves fans, for sure, and that means it's also a little difficult, I assume, for Alan Horton. Hi, Alan.
Paul, how are you?
Well,
good to talk to you.
Well, been better. I mean, honestly, I'd love to tell you it's that I've got an extra bounce in my step, but that was a deflating loss yesterday. And it turns this next game and probably the next two games, Alan, I think into to really must-win games for the Wolves, right?
Yeah, no question about it. You just can't afford to go down 3-0 in the Western Conference Finals, which means you're playing a really good opponent, which the Wolves are. And to go down 3-0 would be pretty much insurmountable.
Right.
Maybe not impossible, but the chances are very slim. And that's the biggest takeaway I have from these first two games is Oklahoma City is really good. And I know they went to 7 games against Denver.
Yeah.
But my thought coming into this series was the fact that, I hope Oklahoma City didn't find something in that Denver series and have a little, have some issues, lost some games. But they won they buckled down in game 7 and dominated that. And they seem to have lifted themselves up from that 7-game series and realized, hey, we're a 68-win team who has the best point differential of any team in NBA history. And that's how good they've been. I don't think they quite get the credit for being the dominant regular season team that they've been. Top 5 offense, top 5 defense for the second straight year. They've doubled down on things that they've done really well in the past, and they've now made those areas just really tough to overcome. And one of those is on the defensive end and forcing turnovers. They were good at it last year. They're great at it this year. A historic number of turnover differential. It's incredible. They've been able to outscore teams by about 5.5, turnovers per game. That's the possession battle that Chris Pinto was always talking about. And Oklahoma City wins that on a nightly basis by turning more turnovers and getting up more shots than you do. It's been a real recipe for success for them.
Alan Horton is the radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Alan, and since we're talking a little bit of like history here, it feels to me, and I'm not a great basketball historian, but it feels to me like we are watching one of the great defensive teams of all time. And there's almost a sense of destiny with this team right now to me. Yeah. And I don't want to say that there's nothing we can do and just, we're just meant to be a speed bump on what's ultimately going to be a championship. But boy, it's kind of got that feel to it a little bit, Alan.
It did. And I was talking to PJ Carlissimo. He calls the games on ESPN radio, the former Seton Hall coach when I was growing up in the Big East. That was his run to the NCAA finals. And, just a guy who's been around this game for, probably calling, coaching, assistant, playing. He's probably been around the game for, 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
I was asking him that very same question. He was just shaking his head. He's like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it at any level. Just the way they swarm to the ball, the way they close out, the way they move together. Coaches always talk about, everybody being on the same page, pulling on the same rope. Well, whoever 5 guys they throw out there seem to all be doing that and just anticipating everything that's happening offensively. Now there are probably some things that the Wolves can come up with to get a little bit better offense. It was, I thought, a little bit better in game 2, but
agreed.
That's not saying much because I thought, 88 points is just not going to get it done in game 1. So they only came up a little bit as far as that's concerned, but they swarm, they're long, they're physical, and they just make life so difficult for you in terms of putting the pressure on you. You try to post them up, well, they're going to bait you into spinning baseline, and guess what? There's a guy right there who's going to rip the ball away from you. You want to go cross court, you better make a perfect pass because they've got the length to reach up and snare it. They lead the league in deflections. They lead the league in loose ball recoveries. They got the number one defense. It's a really, they've got strength and size inside too with Holmgren and with Hartenstein. Yep. So when you do grab an offensive rebound, there were a number of times last night where Jim Peterson and I were talking about how, hey, you grab those offensive rebounds, it's very rare to be able to get a clean look at the rim, even though you're right there. Kick those things out, make that defense work, try to find an open shot. And too often the Wolves were trying to go back up, and then Holmgren and Hartenstein were doing their thing.
And even when you get the rebound, offensively or defensively, they're still battling you for that rebound after you've got the rebound. And so many times they're they're able to swipe the ball away. When you think you've secured that ball, they're swiping the ball away. It is their relentlessness, Alan, is just astounding, and they never give up on plays. When everybody else, every other team, it seems like would have given up on a play, they're still attacking and they're still buzzing, and it feels like it makes almost any opponent feel like they're slow and disinterested, and they're not engaged at the same level that the Thunder are playing at.
It often feels like you're playing 6 for them, 5 for you.
Doesn't it?
That's how swarming they are, and it's a relentless swarming that is not just the starting 5. They've got guys that come off the bench that might even be better at ramping up that defense. I mean, Cason Wallace is not a household name, but the way he plays defense, he should be. Mm-hmm. When they throw Kenrich Williams at you for 6 minutes, then they're going to go to Aaron Wiggins for a little bit. Then they bring Alex Caruso out there, who's just has been a dominant player in the postseason for them. The 2 additions they made in the offseason, Hartenstein in the middle and Caruso on the perimeter. A guy they had in their system a long, long time ago with the Oklahoma City Blue was Alex Caruso when he first came out of Texas A&M. He was with the Thunder in their G League program, and the head coach was Mark Daigneault. And then Alex got scooped up by the Lakers, and 8 years later he's back at Oklahoma City with the same head coach and Mark Daigneault. And he's such a pest defensively. A guy that can guard. He can guard Rudy. He can guard Jokic. He can guard Ant. He can guard anybody. It's pretty incredible to see what they do.
Alan, we've been spending a fair amount of time this morning trying to figure out what happened to Julius Randle, who entered the game in our minds as really the playoff MVP for the Wolves and completely discombobulated. And, he was good at the outset of game 1. And really since then, just everything's gone upside down for him. Is it something they've done to specifically frustrate Julius Randle? What can you account for what it ended up being a 6-point game last night?
I don't know if I can point to something specifically, but I feel like over the last 3 halves of play, so he had that big first half of game 1, he had 20 points, and then he's really had his water cut off the last 3 games.
Yeah,
I feel like some of the attention defensively, and Oklahoma City is probably in a unique position to do this, where most defenses are going to load up on Ant. That's their main guy. They want to slow down. Our whole defensive plan is predicated on how we can run coverages at Anthony Edwards. But I feel like Oklahoma City is so good defensively that they can have that game plan, and they're also focusing in, I think for the first time really in the postseason, on limiting Julius Randle and almost maybe spending a little more attention than Ant in trying to slow him down. They're preventing him from getting easy touches because they're running guys, they're fronting him, so it's making that pass difficult. And when the Wolves do lob it in there, you saw a couple of times that Julius tries to pull it down with one hand. He turns, and guess what? There's another defender to rip it away or poke it free. That happened time and time again. And so he's finding life more difficult in this series, in the last 3 halves specifically, than I think the first 10 games of the postseason, because those Golden State teams and that LA Laker team were just not situated defensively, good enough defensively, to focus on him and Anthony Edwards. Oklahoma City can, and they throw a lot of different guys at him in some different coverages, and just prevented him from, so many times in the postseason we saw, Julius just get it kind of on the wing or at the elbow and just go to work, right? He hasn't been able to do that because they've been swarming all over him. They're paying him much more attention than he's seen in this postseason.
When they do swarm players, whether it's Ant or it's Julius, don't you need to have better ball rotation and move the ball around? Somebody's open, and you have to recognize that moment and find ways to identify the open player and get the ball in his hands.
No doubt, and that's something that I asked PJ Carlissimo too, and he's like, they close out like lightning fast. That's how they're so anticipatory of what's coming that they close out better probably than any team in the league. So you can have that swarming defense, and Julius or Ed or whoever can make the right pass. But by the time it's caught and you're ready to shoot, guess what? There's a defender right there. Now, I thought in game one there were some opportunities, and the NBA stats say that the Wolves generated 30 wide open attempts. But the Wolves only hit 8 of those, really 27%. They usually hit about 40% of those shots. Top 10 team in the regular season. So I think a defense, even though it's a wide open shot, I think somehow OKC is getting a late contest on that, although that would kind of, by definition, that shot is no defender within 6 feet. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what the ramifications and details are of that. When is that taken? When the shot's released? When the defender's, is that the defender's hand in his face, or maybe that's the defender's body? Lots of little things, minutia there. But I just feel like OKC closes out better than anybody. So even if you're making some of those passes, but that's also what a good defense does. It forces you to almost play perfect basketball and have an attention to detail on every single possession to make those right passes. But you got to make them with enough zip. You know, one of the things I loved about Julius Randle this year is when he moves the basketball, it's a two-handed chest pass that comes in you hot and heavy. Like, it gets there quickly. And I asked him about that. He said, I grew up playing with shooters, and so they always wanted the ball in the shooting pocket and get it to me quickly before a defender can close out. And that's something Julius has been so good with this season, big reason why he led the team in setting up three-pointers or assisting three-pointers. But even with some of that zip, OKC is so quick that they're out to cover some of that stuff. So it's you have to be patient, you have to be methodical, but you also have to play with some pace and quickness and try to make that defense work on each possession.
Alan, I've seen a bit of this over the last couple of days, and some of it's kind of hindsight, where it's the idea you're watching that Thunder defense just absolutely stifle, stymie, and suffocate the way that they have. And so the idea on our end is, man, we should have played TJ a little bit more. We should have played Clark a bit more up to this point where we felt better with some form of rotation. I'm not interested in going backwards, but moving forward, Alan, your thoughts on the idea of finding some way, if you're not getting your preferred three off the bench, aren't handling business, even maybe from a defensive standpoint, if we're looking at Terrence Shannon, if we're looking at Clark, and trying to find a way to mix them in and try to affect things tomorrow at Target Center.
Yeah, I think everything's got to be on the table, and I think maybe the philosophy that Chris Finch has had of using primarily his top 8, and those are his guys, and that gives them the best chance to win. I think maybe that mindset changes a little the deeper you go into a series and the further you fall behind. You just can't afford to have lost minutes out there if guys aren't playing particularly well. So, like in game one, Dante, Naz, and Nikhil, I thought all three played really poorly, just struggled to find any kind of rhythm. I thought Naz and Nikhil were much better in game two. Dante struggled. He was a minus 27 in 22 minutes. And I think if you get to game three, I think, and I'll ask Chris Finch this on the tip-off show, if that philosophy changes a little bit, that you kind of can't afford to waste any minutes out there and maybe bring in a Clark, maybe bring in TJ Shannon. Those are two guys that are right there that I think are ready to go. We saw Clark play a little bit in game one. Foul trouble to Rudy, sort of shifted some rotations that I think created an opportunity to play Jalen Clark. I thought he did pretty well in the couple of minutes he got. But those guys are itching and ready to go if they get the call. And I think, like I said, the deeper you go here, you have to try something if things aren't working maybe in this first half of game three.
We knew Anthony Edwards was going to have to be very good in this series. Not that great game one. I thought he was better game two. I especially liked it when he was slashing to the basket, but just shooting 1 for 9 from three, minus 22 on the game for Anthony Edwards. The efficiency still doesn't feel like it's there. We're not getting, we're getting good play. I didn't think dominating play. How do you evaluate Anthony Edwards from game two?
Yeah, the 3-point shooting was tough last night. You mentioned it, 1 for 9, and it was disappointing because the last 3 games, I feel like he had gotten his 3-point stroke back. He was 14 of 28 his prior 3 games. And you're thinking, okay, can we get Ant back to his even regular season levels of 40% shooting and taking 10 a game? And that part of his game wasn't there. I thought he did find his way. And it's not easy when you see Ant do get to the rim. The path he has to take to get there is not this straight line drive. It is a meandering snake-like drive, stepping through, switching hands, bouncing off bodies. It's tough, and yet he's getting there and getting to the free throw line too. You know, I think he got to the free throw line 7 times in game 1, 10 times in game 2. Those are good numbers. That's you can live with that. He is being aggressive, and you just if he could marry some of that shot making inside with with the struggles outside in game 2. Then you'd have something, but everything is difficult for this Wolves offense. And so when Ant is trying to do what he does, he's finding it difficult too. And it's just, there are not a lot of clean looks. There was one wide open corner 3 that he generated in the Wolves offense generated, I think in the second half, maybe third quarter, opposite the Thunder bench. And it's so jarring to see him have a wide open look. It was because he hasn't had that type of look, I feel like, maybe more than a couple of times the entire series.
What do you make of Ant refusing to meet with the media after the game?
Oh, I don't read too much into it. I don't know if it stems from him getting fined $50,000 in game 1 for dropping an F-bomb, or just frustrated with the game. We've seen Ant decline to talk before. He usually does his media stuff after games. Doesn't like to do any, off day media stuff or pregame stuff. So, but it's nothing new. I don't know whether or not that in the postseason that will warrant another fine. Not quite sure how that works, but it'll be, it's nothing new for Ant that he's either talking or not talking. We've seen him go both ways after games.
How do you feel about Chet Holmgren's contributions? I felt like he was a big difference maker here. It doesn't always, not always somebody that in some cases he does fill out the box score and 22 points. The inside out game that he can play. I thought Chet Holmgren was a major factor last night and really the night before as well.
Well, he's really fit into this role with the Thunder team well. I was talking about this in the broadcast last night. The Chet is essentially, he's played 3 seasons, but I rephrase that. He's been in the NBA for 3 seasons, but he only played a year and a half. He missed his entire rookie year with that foot injury, and then he missed half this season with a hip injury. So he's really been shortchanged. He's only played a year and a half of 3 years, and so I don't think he's even close to reaching what we're going to see maybe in 2, 3, 4 years down the road as he continues to learn the nuances of the NBA and get his. I don't know if his frame will ever become sort of a bigger, larger, more muscular version. He's always going to be that tall, thin frame, which can still work well, but I still think it'll fill out a little bit. But he's fit in perfectly behind Shea and Jalen Williams. He's a third option that all of a sudden, when, in the third quarter, all of a sudden he hits a 3 or his length chart is just unbelievable. There was a play in the, I guess it may be first half, where he caught it in the kind of the mid post just outside the lane. I mean, he's so long, he just launched to the rim and just laid it in over the rim. And somehow he got to that cup all on his own, like without even a dribble. And you're just like, dang, his length is amazing. And I thought he's had a real nice impact, kind of an under the radar impact these 2 games. He's come up big when his team needs him, and just, 22 points is not going to blow you away. The 4 rebounds, he didn't have a blocked shot, but he had a couple of those, and he had 2 of those in game 1. And he and Hartenstein are a dynamic duo inside. They're a threat. You see them at the paint, you see them at the rim, and you do what people do when they see Rudy Gobert at the rim. They turn around and go back the other way because of that rim protection that they provide. Well, and he's going to be a really good player, though. Yeah, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, he is. And, that transitions us to Gobert. I wish I could say that Gobert was such a dominating inside presence in this series that he was turning away shots, but I don't feel like it's been that way. Unless you see it differently, help me understand how you feel, how has Rudy, I guess I don't want to put too much of my personal bias in this. How do you feel Rudy has done through these 2 games? I haven't liked a lot of what I've seen. I haven't seen a ton of effectiveness. I haven't seen the rebounding numbers I feel like I need, but tell me how you feel about Gobert and how he hopefully can get better here in game 3.
Yeah, I think he's got to have more of an impact, Church. No doubt about it. When you total just 7 points and he's totaled 12 rebounds in 2 games, in game 1 kind of threw him right for a loop from the get-go with those 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the game. And he's only taken 8 shots. He's 3 of 8 shooting. He's got to have a bigger impact. There's no doubt about it. I think he would say that. I think Chris Finch would say that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not the only one that has to have a bigger impact. But when you're, I feel like the Thunder have Hartenstein and Holmgren, who have been a really good duo, and the Wolves need Rudy Gobert to match some of what Holmgren and Hartenstein are doing. They've been able to find him a couple of times in the 2 games, but not nearly enough. And the offensive glass too. I mean, Rudy did have 4 offensive rebounds last game. He had 1 the game before that. But they need him to be, one of the best offensive rebounders that he's proven to be through the course of his career. But they need him to be a bigger on the offensive glass, because that's one area where the Thunder are not a great team. They're not a great defensive rebounding team, despite having Chet and Hartenstein with size inside. The Wolves in the regular season were able to get offensive rebounds and second chance points. Yeah. Even in these first 2 games, they got 12 offensive rebounds in game 1, 13 in game 2. But the problem has been converting those back into points, and they have struggled in that regard. So they need more from Rudy Gobert. They need more from Dante DiVincenzo. They got more production from Mike Conley, I thought, in game 1 in that second half than in game 2. Although when you look at the plus minus, Mike Conley's the only guy who's been a plus in 2 games, plus 19 in about 50 minutes of play. So that's something. Although you can't play, Mike's at the stage where you're not playing him 40 minutes a night. So unfortunately, you can't just keep riding him. But it speaks to what Mike brings, like just taking care of the basketball, knowing how to play offensively, defensively. He's been playing great defensively too. I don't think he probably gets enough credit for that. And he just gets the Wolves offense into at least getting looks at the rim, at least getting shots up rather than turning it over. Because when he's on the floor, the Wolves have only had 1 turnover in 2 games in those 50 minutes.
Alan Horton is the radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Alan, let's leave it here. The Wolves need to win these next 2 games. Let's fast forward a couple of days. Are we Saturday and Tuesday? Next 2 games, right?
Monday.
Saturday, Monday, right? Saturday, Monday. So if you're on this station Tuesday morning and we're talking about 2 wins for the Timberwolves, what went right?
I think what went right, if the Wolves win 2 games, right off the bat, I would say that Oklahoma City played much better at home than they did on the road, and maybe there's something to that. That was that arena felt like a feeding frenzy that the Wolves stepped into, and while that crowd can be quiet at times, when they get loud, they get really loud. Some of the best sound you've heard in the NBA. And so if the Wolves are going to win these 2 games, Oklahoma City's got to be a little bit different team. And by different, I mean worse, I guess. The Wolves have to do a better job of taking care of the basketball. Even the 19 turnovers went down to 14. That's a reasonable number. But the problem is that OKC is so good turning turnovers into points. Yeah. They got 22 points off of that. And the Wolves still lost the points off a turnover battle by 12 points. That's a big margin in a game you're trying to keep close. The Wolves also have to find a way to get some pace going here. They had 0 fast break points in game 1. They get 9 in game 2. You got to get double digits. We got to be able to, if not win the battle, at least keep the battle close, so you're not losing that margin like they were in games 1 and 2. So I think they increase the pace a little bit. They keep those turnovers at I love the number of 14. If you can keep it at 14 or less, I think that's a recipe for success. I think the Wolves' offense, like we said, it took some baby steps in game 2, I thought, from game 1, and maybe it takes another step in front of the home crowd. Maybe some of those threes start to drop. The Wolves have just not clicked from deep in either the first 2 games or really, since that first game against the Lakers when they shot 21 of 42, the Wolves are shooting just 32% on their threes over the last now 2, 10, 12, 11 games. That's not their game. They've been a top 5 shooting team in the NBA in the regular season. They were top 5 in 3-point rate. The volume was there. The efficiency was there. They've got to knock down some of those shots. And I think Nikhil said it after the game last night. We just have to hit shots. We got to knock down those threes. That's something they did in the regular season. And with the exception of game 1 against the Lakers, they have not been able to do it in the postseason. So I think some of those threes start to fall. And then when some of those threes start to fall, now you have that advantage at the 3-point line, which we saw in the regular season, which the Wolves were really good at. the 3-point differential. That's the best differential to have because that shot is worth the most. And so I think the Wolves kind of dominate that 3-point line, or maybe not dominate, but win it to a certain extent that gives them a cushion to overcome some of the areas where Oklahoma City is good in. So I think they ride the home crowd. The offense ticks up, the threes drop, and maybe that Oklahoma City defense isn't quite as stout as we saw in the first two games.
Let's hope we're talking on Tuesday about exactly that narrative, and we can. Norton will go back. He'll cut up this audio, and you'll sound like a genius, and the whole thing's tied to and back to OKC. Thank you, Al.
Absolutely. I think that would be great. And I think it would be great for the series. I think it would be great for the NBA because it seems like New York and Indiana are holding up their end of the bargain as far as playing some pretty incredible games. It'd be great to get this thing. It starts with game 3, but you get that, tie this thing up, and makes things interesting.
Thanks so much, Alan.
Paul, all the best, man.
Yep. Alan Horton, so good at what he does. And you'll be able to hear him. Tip-off Saturday is at 7:30. Consistently 7:30. Although,
keeps it easy.
It's every game is 7:30. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's for those of us that needs things simplified. Having every game start at 7:30 is fantastic. Alan Horton pregame show is half hour before.
It's usually 15 minutes. I believe, and I don't. Why don't I just look in front of me? I know
I bet the schedule's right there. Yeah,
we should have.
What are we talking about?
We got some howling with the homies tomorrow, and that starts at 6:30.
Outstanding.
That'll bring you into the pregame with Alan and the tip off anywhere. I mean, they say 7:30. It's at least going to be 7:40, 7:45.
Yeah, it's never quite. It's not like the NFL quite that way. And you get some bonus Jim Peterson.
You get bonus
as well.
Jim Pete.
We love that part of the of the radio production as well. If you want the best experience, everybody knows this. You turn down the TV sound. You turn up Jim Pete, Alan Horton, correct. And you listen to your favorite hometown broadcasters. More coming up. PA's out today. Charge in Friday. It's not really the football feast today. We only just a couple of minutes on football, but we've been calling that for 15 years. It's hard to say anything different. So we'll just say the Friday football feast continues in moments.
The Fan wants to give you a chance, along with BigDeck.com. Some bonus bucks may be coming your way with the National Cash Contest. The keyword is check, and you can enter that keyword at KFAN.com. KFAN.com. The keyword is suggestions for you, Charch, in the inbox.
Okay. Now, for people who missed it in the early part of the show, we challenged our tractor-bound listeners to give us reasons why the Wolves will win this series.
Yeah.
Trying to find something positive to glom onto while the Wolves are down 0-2 and have been outplayed pretty badly through 2 games.
And I'll be honest with you, not a lot of optimism. I will crown.
Was the challenge too big? Was this too much of an ask?
The challenge was too tough. So, but next segment, I'm going to offer up courtesy of Sioux Cub Manufacturing, our final Fan on the Farm Tractor Talkback Prize Pack winner, and looking forward to that. But I was referring to the text. If I don't know if you have text messages in front of you.
I don't know how to log into our text messaging system, so I'm going to count on you for that.
We kind of fixed the glitch when you left a few weeks ago.
Oh, you did?
Just to make sure that you couldn't.
All right, thank you.
You couldn't jump in. But a lot is kind of going back down the road of now that you live in Virgin, Utah.
Yeah.
And it is a city ordinance. It is built into the fabric of the culture of Virgin, Utah, that you become a firearm owner.
Required.
And
yes.
You didn't find out. You'd already bought the house, and you just show up, and then Brad rolls out in his his Jordan Love jersey. And
yes.
He's tossing the football with his kid, huge Jaden Reed fan, the whole bit. And they want to, they don't know about your fantasy football prowess yet. So you're going to be getting all those questions.
Oh, yeah. I should get a high stakes fantasy league going with all these people who have no idea.
Well, but that's the thing though with Brad though. Maybe you can exchange services. So your fantasy football background, and he can help you out at the range.
That would be good. I have to figure out what if I have to buy a gun?
Yeah.
Which really I never considered in Minnesota. You know, and I'm thinking about, I'm old enough to remember, do you remember when concealed carry passed here in Minnesota?
Yeah, I don't remember what year that was. Long time.
It was a long time. It's like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember at the time it was like, it's going to turn into the Old West. People are going to be dueling in the streets. And I've never once seen anybody packing heat in Minnesota.
Well,
they're concealing very well if they're doing it.
In fairness, that is the point. That's the concealed part.
That's the concealed part of the concealed carry. But
I saw somewhere, there 5.5, 6 million people in Minnesota?
Are registered gun owners?
No.
People. Total. Yeah, right.
So I think there's somewhere between, let's call it 400,000 to 500,000 concealed carry permits.
Wow. Okay.
That have been issued. But and this was the road I was going to go down with you, because I think that the training aspect is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's the this is a, as you want to make safety kind of second nature, right? I mean, if a situation arises in which you have to handle that firearm, you're not, I would prefer that you knew how to handle it. You know what I mean?
Me too.
Correct.
Me too.
For all parties involved.
Yes.
So, but a lot of people will take a concealed carry. I mean, if there's 400,000 or 500,000, I bet maybe half of those individuals actually carry with any regularity, and even a smaller percentage of that would carry every day. A lot of it is the training.
Do you know anybody who wears a concealed firearm every day? Going to work, going to the store. So you know people that do that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But it's not a large number. That would
not here. No.
So, but with all that said, that concealed carry training class, now that you're out in Utah, take the safety class, understand how the things work, because I could just throw out, hey, buy a Glock 17. Do you know what that means?
No idea.
So that would be a brand and the particular model of a very, very well-known and popular handgun.
It's a handgun. Okay.
Right. But until you, in my opinion, until you know how to take something apart, put it back together, understand why it operates the way it does, how to properly handle it, I'm not just going to start throwing brands and names. Yeah, get this thing. It's sweet.
Like people are telling me I need to get a SIG.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Is it an SIG?
Well, it's Sig Sauer's the manufacturer.
Sig
like
Sauer.
a P365, super popular. You can go P226 if you're looking for more full size.
Do those numbers mean anything? Is like 226 the ammo size or something? No, I know so
9mm will be the very common.
And that's the smallest of the commonly available bullets, right?
Not the smallest. But, But it's, so that'd be the diameter of it. You can get a 10mm. 45 is closer to like 11 and change. You can go down all these rabbit holes at some point. My point is start by getting safe. Start by taking a class.
Yeah.
Learning about these things. And then ultimately you're going to buy something you're super comfortable with. And you're going to get that by renting at the range. You're going to be
trying different things.
Correct. Yeah. And it'll be kind of a journey. But get safe first. Understand what it is. You'll want to have something to store it in at the house. And,
and
maybe you bring Mrs. Charge into this mix too.
I think she's going to be interested because I'm more interested in her defending herself than me.
There you go.
You know, I'm out of town on some exotic fantasy sports related thing.
Yeah, you're on a cruise during a Vikings playoff game.
Yeah, as an example, not with her apparently in this scenario, and I would prefer that she knows all this stuff as well. I'm worried if I don't take classes, if I just like...
Then she should too.
Well, she should too.
But if you take that concealed carry permit class, even if you don't intend to carry, you're going to learn about all the laws in the state of Utah. You're going to learn, and again, the gravity of the responsibility of ownership. Important part of that helps you understand what you're doing, how to do it, and that'll be a great journey for both of you.
If I don't do it, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to wake up middle of some night. I'm going to think there's an intruder. I'm going to go scrambling for this gun, and down goes scraps.
Well,
that's what I got to avoid.
Yeah, the negligent discharge.
Yes, that's what they have. They have a phrase for that.
So again,
when you shoot your own dog, negligent discharge. Nobody wants a middle of the night negligent discharge.
No, in many areas, yes, correct.
If you store your gun. These are like gun owner 101 questions because I really don't know. If you store your gun in the safe, what happens when you need it quickly for self-defense?
Right.
how do I get it? It's the middle of the night. I wake up. I'm in a stupor. I got to try to get into my safe.
Correct.
At that point.
So sleeping stupor, which means that, again, reps, handling it safely, understanding it to a T where you are never, again, firearm safety rules. You're never pointing it at anybody. You're never finger on the trigger unless you're intending to pull it. Identify your target and know what's behind your target, things like that. So reps, understanding that. But to that standpoint, you can buy a safe at your bedside table. A little thumbprint, little biometric bit thing pops open, and
I like the sound of that.
And you're potentially on the move if you're in one of those nasty spots. So there are options. But there's too many options even really for us to narrow in on. Besides, take a freaking class. It'll cost you a total of $300, but take a basic firearm safety class, take a permit class, and I think you're dancing, or at least you're in the right direction in terms of being able to lock in on something that you're comfortable operating with, and then in the end, what your gal's comfortable with.
By many accounts, going to the range and shooting at the range is a blast. I've talked to people who
literally
are
and figuratively
they're ardently like anti-gun, but they like to go to the range because shooting guns at the range is really fun. But they don't like the total societal, integration of guns and stuff like that. But people love to go to the range. If I want a gun, if my use case scenario, where I'm going, Virgin, is very safe. My use case scenario is probably going to be me having fun at the range. Handguns aren't fun at the range, right? Don't you want a bigger, heavier caliber gun? That's something at the range is going to be more fun than just a handgun, right?
Well, you're asking, I mean, they can all be fun. They can all be fun. While you're safe, of course. Safety has to be second nature. They can all be fun, but yeah, I
got that. Yes.
See, but that's where once you've taken those classes, that's where when you start hanging out with Brad shows you
next door neighbor Brad.
Yeah, Brad shows you he's got the 308.
Yeah.
Hey, check out this thing. Check out this thing I got. Don't tell anybody about this. I'm putting a lot of trust on the line with this particular thing.
Right.
That's, maybe you and Brad can explore the full catalog and the universe that is out there for firearms.
I have a little bit of worry that I'm going to end up in some scenario where I'm using I can't see some where I'm using like a chain gun at like a Terminator, like with the two hands and the whole thing. I don't think that's going to be me.
Well, those have been automatic weapons have been illegal since 1986. So unless you're a firearms dealer, like you're not going to go to the range and just
with a chain gun.
Yeah, and Brad rolls out there with anything like that. A little, audit. No, there's not going to be any mini guns taking place.
Do I need to get, if I want to get an automatic rifle, do I need to get that now? If I need to get a semi-automatic rifle, do I need to get that now before it ends up being legislated out and illegal?
Well, it sounds like Utah, that's not a problem.
Okay, so that will be a state-by-state thing. Yeah, no, Utah's very unlikely to change that.
You need to get something, even the kind you're saying, I'm worried about this, take the class and maybe don't buy one for a while then, because I need you to be safe, but I need you to have some level of confidence.
I don't have an option to not buy one. It's a legal requirement to own one in my city, so I have to buy one.
Well, get it going then. Get it going, but let's not worry about rifles. Let's not worry about calibers at this point. Eventually, if I had to bet it all, you will end up with a 9mm handgun.
A 9mm handgun.
You will, and some sort of safe to put it in.
That sounds like that sounds reasonable, but the handgun doesn't sound like as much fun. That's the other. But I don't know yet.
But there's range day, and then there's other things.
That's true. I could buy many guns. That's what you're saying. For all the different applications.
Buy as many as you want, but let's start. Before we just go to the store and get the credit card rolling.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to, what we want and how to use it.
All right. That sounds like a good deal. Thank you for the advice. I appreciate that. I know people, we've got emails coming in and people are trying to offer advice, which I appreciate because I don't know. Obviously, as you can tell from this conversation, I don't know what I'm talking about. And fortunately, that's never been an impediment to being on the air on this station.
Final segment, 9 to noon. Hopelessly behind the clock. Apologize for that. Program around the corner. But our Suka Manufacturing talkback of the day is here.
George Nordo.
Hey.
Mike the tomato farmer here from St. Charles, Minnesota, planting 150 tomato plants this spring for that bomb salsa. Nordo knows the secret to a good crop is pinching those tomato plant sucker leaves. Finching the wolves need to pinch those thunder. Squeeze and pinch them like a tomato plant sucker leaf. Let's get this next W at home. SGA's a baby, and we need to pinch him like the baby that he is. Ow!
I love it.
Purely based on energy,
Yeah, right.
he gets the Sukup Manufacturing prize pack. Thank you all week to Sukup Manufacturing. He's the fifth of five, and I mean, there's some optimism there, I suppose.
No, there is. I don't know what pinch a what leaf? What is he talking about?
Sucker leaf.
So I don't know what that is,
Neither
but
do
all
I.
right.
We're all learning things today.
Emailer Michael, Charge, please don't buy a gun. I will feel much safer. That's probably accurate. That is probably accurate.
I believe in you. I believe in your curiosity. I believe in you taking those classes, and I'm excited to follow along on this journey with you.
You're so very responsible. I'm glad.
You're in Utah and I'm here, so
that's right. All right, exactly. Thanks for your help today, Nordo.
Thank you.
It was
for
awesome
your
being here. PA back. We assume Monday,
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Thank you. And program password tournament.
Oh.
Happening right now without me. I can't defend my title.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.